In a world where local musicians and artists are unrated, underappreciated, unnoticed, battered, abused, and swept under the rug.
Living show to show without secure benefits like medieval jesters.
Run with the kittens.
You're actually listening to it right now. I played a song for my hamster that just died.
Live, absolutely.
I lied.
Underplayed and underpaid.
Real local music.
Use what you have.
All the canned rock stuff. And the canned rock stuff, too.
Chuck Wood around.
We won't get into that.
That's a good thing.
Mondays at 6 p.m.
What was special to me, really cool, amazing, incredible. Like, I need to rise up to this level.
Phenomenal.
Definitely incredible.
Probably the coolest.
Strong. You're a people-aholic.
Oh.
Wow, you're killing me.
I'll try not to swear.
CFRU 93.3.
Wow, the food was
Delicious.
had a smorgasbord of awesomeness.
It's not your regular breakfast sausage.
I also ate some cocktail wieners and drank some melon liqueur one morning very early on the tour bus.
Welcome to another installment of Underplayed and Underpaid. It's Brian McNeil with you as I am every week. The format of the show is we'd like to promote local talent, whether you perform here on a regular basis or you're just breezing through. And if you want to get a hold of me at bryancfru@gmail.com, that's how we can do that. And today, wonderful guest in the station today, Paul MacLeod. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Brian. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. And if you go to the Underplayed & Underpaid Facebook page, you can click on the note and the previous dates that I've had Paul MacLeod either interviewed on the street.
Oh, yeah.
That interview.
Oh, that's right. Right at the Sun. Well, it was closed, of course. But.
Yes. and the first time that I actually had you in here.
Yes.
First time you played my dad's guitar.
That's
which
right.
I'm always stoked about.
And I get to play it again, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Well, thanks again for coming in. And so how have you been over the last year? It was last summer that you came in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, doing really well. Started doing some work with a band. Started off for fun, and now we're just getting around to recording a bit of music and just playing, traveling a little bit. We'll head back out, do a few dates in October, Montreal way with Lucas Stagg.
Right, so it's a solo tour, right?
Yes, yeah, just solo. The two of us, we've gone out to Halifax and back. I don't know how many times now. I'm gonna guess at least 3 full all-inclusive trips, and then a bunch of short, broken-up trips here and there. So we've probably hit the road a good 10 times together.
Wow!
Since about 2009, maybe 2008, 2009. So yeah.
How was that lately? The last few trips with Lucas been really smooth.
Really smooth. Actually, they just get better and better. I mean, we're great friends, so we get along really well, and we always have a good time. But we've more or less, Lucas has been instrumental in setting up most of the dates, and we from there just kind of pick and choose the spots that worked, look for someplace else if we didn't feel we were the right fit. So we think we've got it down to where we've got all the right rooms out to PEI and back that make sense for us. And so sometimes we'll go together, sometimes separately. I was out that way with Lynn Jackson. Maybe 18 months ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2 years. But, it's just a matter of finding for me anyways, and I know I can speak for Lucas, it's just a matter of finding the room that works for you and you feel like you're coming across. And then, of course, keep up good relationships with the people who book you. And it's just been great. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than it's always a good time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a band that you're part of. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about it?
Well, the band's called Romeo Sex Fighter, and we started off by accident, where a venue called the Boathouse in Victoria Park in Kitchener had regular Saturday matinees, and they had a few last-minute openings come up. And Kevin Doyle, who ran the Boathouse and booked all of the music, got in touch with a couple of us and asked us if we could quickly throw something together just to have on the stage for a Saturday afternoon. And one thing led to another, and about 4 weeks later, we found ourselves there every Saturday afternoon just calling out songs, not really rehearsing, just kind of doing things by the seat of our pants. And then it really started to take off as far as an audience coming in and us starting to sound more like a unit than just 4 people slapping together songs. Mm-hmm. And so from there, we ended up slowly introducing a few originals, but keeping it, we were just like the house band, playing covers and having fun. And then a couple opportunities came up for us after we'd been at it for about 6 months, and one of them was to play a CD release party with Lumberjunk, and you had Matt Weidinger and Daryl Rompfin here not too long ago.
That's right.
And that's two guys in Lumberjunk, and so they asked us to come and open a show, and it really to us made no sense to go play an original venue with original music and be a cover band there. It just kind of goes against the reason we all go out and hope to support those venues that book original music. So I went into my back catalog and I had a few new songs kicking around. Well, that went well. And then fast forward to maybe 3-4 months ago, we were invited to open for Big Country when they came to Canada. And so we just did one date with them at the Starlight in Waterloo. And so we added 1 or 2 more songs, and then we've just, now the next step for us is to start recording. So we're still having fun, just, doing that matinee or special event kind of cover band for fun. We still keep that, but we've slowly started to introduce an original element to it. And so far, so good. We're happy with it. Looking forward to recording it because it'll be much easier to see if we are where we think we are once we have something we can sit back and listen to. But I'm looking forward to that. So I think we're going to be starting with kind of a song at a time in the near future and see how it's going.
I got a few times I was able to come out to the Boathouse and check you guys out. And also New Year's at the Jimmy Jazz. That's right. We did. Yeah, Dylan and Conrad had us in for New Year's. We had a great time. Yeah. Everybody there did. So you mentioned the Boathouse. Yes. So the Boathouse has closed. Is it officially closed for good? It's not closed for good. It's closed. The city has put an opening date on it, approximately June, July. They're looking to bring on a new leaseholder, do some renovations, and then get it up and running again. And it is important because Kitchener didn't really have one smallish to medium-sized venue for touring bands to come through. So Kitchener was off the map for as far as if you would put together any band putting together a tour. It's like you're going to find places in Guelph, no problem. Waterloo, no problem. You got Jane Bond, the Starlight, and you've got a couple of university campuses. But Kitchener, there were some bigger rooms. And then, then it would be a bar pub kind of environment that wasn't a full-time music concern, so it wouldn't have good sound and be set up to handle a show. Like you might be lucky to find a stage at some of these places. Bobby O'Brien's downtown being the exception. That's all wired up and ready to go. And what was important about that is just there really wasn't any place. And I guess to give you some perspective from my end of things, I hadn't played a regular night in Kitchener after joining the Skydiggers in 96, 97, and when they left the road as a full-time concern a few years back, there really wasn't any place that I would want to go out and play music. And so there were, certainly lots of places to play, but there wasn't a room that had that soul or vibe or feel or whatever it is you're looking for that you find in every city. There's one room to a handful of rooms depending on the size, and Kitchener really seemed to be lacking that. And so along comes Kevin Doyle, and I think he was probably the third person to take a shot at running it, or the third group of people. And Kevin and his crew came in and really made it happen. And then suddenly, this was a sought-after venue for bands and solo acts or whatever it was at the medium level. So if a club of, say, if you needed 250 bodies or more to get in, that might be a daunting task on your first or second tour to even come close to doing that, to make sense of the venue having you, and you make sense of the expense of being there. And the Boathouse was that right size, about 80 to 95 people. Great patio looking out into Victoria Park, which is, for those of you who, for the people I meet all over Canada, who when I say I'm from Kitchener, I get a lot of eye rolls. And I don't blame people, because for years, if you drove through the downtown or drove through the area, you looked at it and went, so how much longer till Waterloo? Or which way's Guelph was basically what you'd hear. And this is just a little gem in the park, and it really, really worked. And you were getting bands from coast to coast, from a lot of acts from the United States and all kinds of music. It kind of was a central home for blues for a long time, and then branched out singer-songwriters. And I mean, I could start running down the list of acts that have played there, but for people from Guelph, and listeners to your show, I mean, Run with the Kittens would just absolutely pack that place. Amber McLean would go in there and do solo shows, or pair up with Lynn Jackson and do shows, and they would just pack the place.
And then you get guys like Tom Wilson coming in to do shows. You get blues acts from all over the place just wanting to come in and play this room. And the room was almost the central hub to that KW Blues Festival that happens every summer, which the last 2 years alone has brought in 250,000 people. And this year, like Steve Earle was headlining it. It's really jumped up. I mean, you know, kind of starting grassroots and making its way into being a much bigger music festival. And with any luck, if they keep doing things the way they're doing, they might be able to have that name possibly mentioned in a sentence along with Hillside in 10 or 15 years, the way Hillside, very grassroots, has become arguably the most talked about festival in Canada.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, well, thanks to those involved with Hillside.
No kidding.
So you mentioned Run with the Kittens and Stony Lonesome.
Oh, of course. Steve Parkinson and the Stony Lonesome every Sunday afternoon. Yeah, they were just an incredible band.
And, RSF, you guys.
Yep.
Romeo Sex Fighter.
Romeo Sex Fighter was Saturday afternoons.
So is there a venue that is picking up all these fantastic musicians and bands?
Now, at the moment, things are a little spread out, and so I would imagine you're going to see a lot more of them heading up to King Street in Kitchener to Bobby O'Brien's. They're great people to deal with, and as I said before, they've got the production and the stage all ready to go. And they probably would be the only venue downtown that rivaled the musical output of the Boathouse by having all sorts of different things at different times of day, whether they were late afternoon shows or matinees or a lot of evening shows. But at the moment, there really hasn't been that one room where everything seemed to be coming in. But these are early days, and heading into next summer, there's a guy who's put his hand up in Kitchener. His name's Glenn Smith. And Glenn pretty much has everything he's touched in that area has turned to gold. And he's the one guy who, while you can't possibly replace Kevin Doyle or what Kevin's done, Glenn is a guy who gets it maybe better than most. Well, not maybe. He just gets it better than most. And if he takes that venue over, I can pretty much guarantee that it will continue to be a stop on the road for indie bands, blues bands, international bands, singer-songwriters, you name it. I mean, he had the first place I can think of for me growing up was, well, I guess two places, but there was a place called the Hoodoo Lounge in downtown Kitchener that had all sorts of bands, a lot of things from Toronto. The Phantoms were always a big deal to go see there. And then he ran a place called Pop the Gator. And this was a blues club that was on the North American tour schedule for any act, from Otis Clay right on down to a guy 2 cities over who was looking to release an album and want to have that big important room on his resume. So once he moved on from Pop the Gator and the Hoodoo Lounge, he opened a place called the Circus Room, which had music going just, I gotta guess, 4 or 5 times a week. Same thing, just packed all the time. And for anyone familiar with Kitchener-Waterloo, they will definitely know Ethel's Lounge in Waterloo, which again is a place that, lucky getting a seat on the patio all throughout the summer. And you're lucky to get a seat, period, in that place. And again, it's got the Glenn Smith stamp on it. So that venue will remain the same, definitely with Glenn Smith's name behind it as far as bringing in the music goes. And so hopefully that is the case. But of course, you're without wishing too much in the future, I'm still in just that personal moratorium for my love of Kevin and how great he's been to me. And also the city has committed to wanting to keep it as a venue. The people really spoke out about wanting to keep the room the way it was. And I really hope that's the case. And I mean, that does so much for the local acts. I know for me, when I was up in Waterloo and university, a place called Phil's, it was back then Phil's grandson's place, and then it just became known as Phil's. But they had shows every Wednesday night for $5. So, and, $1.50 beers or $1.75 for a bottle of beer or whatever it was. And so you could go down, I could walk over to the place right across the road from Wilfrid Laurier, and Wednesday, go see Lowest of the Low, go see the Waltons, go see the Skydiggers, go see just an endless stream of bands that I had heard on indie radio, CFNY at the time, which is now the Edge 102.1, but Rheostatics, just I could go on, and these bands would come in there and play, and it was $5, so a $20 bill was good enough for the night to get you in the door and, have yourself 5 or 6 drinks and walk home and enjoy a band. And without me being able to see that at the time, there was no internet for me to just get music out to people. There was no way to market virally. It was just, I need to get into a club and open for a band. I've got some songs and I want to see if I can, take a shot at this. And without having that in your neighborhood or in your community, it still seems very foreign. And so when something's that close to home, you can go out and see it for yourself and feel it and touch it. It makes all the difference in inspiring any young or old new acts that are starting to, test the waters on the stage or kind of just break into a scene and try to build a following. And I mean, that's one of the important things about Rooms. And as one of the cities, you're in a city that Guelph travels incredibly well from coast to coast, because any touring band knows that you're going to stop in Guelph. Obviously, you're probably going to focus on Toronto when you're in Ontario and build dates around your Toronto date. But the very next thing on your list is always going to be, Guelph, and you just look at the number of venues. You've got the E-Bar, Jimmy Jazz, Van Gogh's, Vinyl, and on the list goes. That, to me, is remarkable for considering the population of KW versus the population of Guelph. There's just always been more going on here. Yeah.
Right on. Well, we're about a third of the way through the show. Would you like to play a song?
Yeah.
Give a little background to the listeners. And
all right. Well, this is a song when I had finished recording an album called Gauge and took it on the road, and then got back, and I had some songs I was working on, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do next, and that's when the Romeo Sex Fighter opportunity came along. So this was a song that kind of kick-started me digging up some old half-finished things and adding some new things to them, and then getting on with new songs, thinking there might be an opportunity to record some songs with a band and just give myself a change of venue for a while. But really, this was more of a stopgap for me when I was just sitting around wondering what should I do next. Is it another CD in the same dates? Is that working for me? Is it inspiring me anymore to go and do it? And so this is called Free.
Brace for the wicked, I know it comes this way. It's followed me since morning, calling out my name. I had one last chance to do right, and that was yesterday. Wait by the window, the moonlight will begin to light up my arrival, but you won't let me in, to cheat you of your daylight and leave you shivering. And you'll be freed from this burden, earthbound and imperfect. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Freed from your burden, earthbound and imperfect. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I'll roll onto a desert, land a rocky shoal. I'll hide out with the devils I brought to your front door. I'll cheat you of your daylight till it's with you nevermore. And you'll be freed from this burden, earthbound and imperfect. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Freed from your burden, earthbound and imperfect. if you believe in something, if you believe in something more, come let me show you how you're wrong. And you'll be free, freed from your burden, earthbound and imperfect. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Freed from your burden, earthbound and imperfect. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Freed from your burden, earthbound and imperfect. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Freed from your burden, earthbound and imperfect. It wasn't supposed to be like this.
That was beautiful, Paul.
Oh, thank you very much.
The whole album is lovely, and yeah, sorry, just turn up the mics again. Yeah, thanks again for playing. That was a song Free by Paul MacLeod. And if you wanted to learn more about Paul MacLeod or possibly find any downloads for your music, paulmacleodmusic.com. And
bustedflatrecords.com. Definitely, yeah. It's a great website, and you can check out a lot of the other artists on there. Lynn Jackson, Lucas Stagg would be familiar names to people in Guelph. Dwayne Rudder, and geez, I don't want to try to name everyone, but I hate leaving people out. And one of my new personal favorites and my favorite band from the KW area, Sex Dwarf.
Oh yeah,
which I think would make my ideal show if I were to go out to have a good time. Night off for me would be a Sex Dwarf run with the Kittens double bill, and I don't know. I can't think of a way to have more fun than putting those two bands together. And
maybe if they slap Jumble in there too.
Oh man,
have you seen Jumble?
No, but those posters let me know. I know I'm going to have a good time.
Yeah, let's hope that they don't break up. So yeah, you were talking about going and seeing, like Phil's, you were exposed to, because this is before the internet really took off.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. We're talking, I'm 43 years old, so we're talking 91, 92 and university. So, yeah.
So something that has changed since then is the age that students are going to post-secondary education has dropped.
There were very few 18-year-old first-year students, and that was based on the fact that you were a fall baby. So you had to wait for, January, possibly late December to hit your 19th birthday. When I went to school, there were obviously some fast trackers. You've got your geniuses all over the place who probably, could make their way into university at 14, 15, and they have that work ethic. That wasn't me by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, most of the first-year students when I started were 19, so it was very different. And live bands, were constantly going on. There were all sorts of other things, comedians, mentalists, you name it, all sorts of fun stuff going on. But there weren't, when you went out to see music, it was a live band, and now you've got way more options, whether it's EDM, DJs, rap, hip-hop, and all, anything. But back then, it was you just go see live bands. That was really the thing to do, is go watch a 4 or 5 piece band and play some rock music for you or whatever it was they did.
Well, how important do you think that little change in the age of students going to post-secondary education, how important do you think that was on the live music scene? Because the way I seem to see it here in Guelph,
I wonder, that's a good question. It's not something I've ever given much thought to, but obviously it had to make a difference because, you're certainly not setting foot in a bar in Ontario under the age of 19 without risk of and getting yourself into some trouble, or getting the bar into a whole lot of trouble if you get caught. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd have to say it would have had a huge impact on just the available audience right off the bat. Whereas you take a place like Phil's or a place like Brass Taps here at U of G, you've got people all within minutes walking, and Phil's, you've got Wilfrid Laurier across the road, and Waterloo is 10, 15 minutes up the road, and really, that's not a big deal at all to walk yourself for about even half an hour for people. It's to go out somewhere where they can see music. But yeah, I've never really considered the age group. I hear a lot of people in music talk about the differences in popular music that take away from people wanting to go see a live band, but I've never really heard that discussed before as far as campuses go and the influence they have on cities. And everybody who's in a university town knows the influence that the students have. Mm-hmm. And especially for the service industry, whether it's live music or just restaurants, bars, and clubs, whatever they're playing, from dance music to a solo acoustic act, obviously a huge difference, yeah.
A musician who will remain unnamed off the record said that was the reason why he doesn't play as often in Guelph anymore. He used to have a big thing on Tuesday nights where this one bar, again, will remain nameless.
Well, the more information you keep giving out, I think
it was packed. It was packed every Tuesday. And now downtown on a Tuesday is really rather dead, except for a few places doing trivia.
Well, I was going to say, it's got to be I know the Jimmy Jazz trivia night seems to be the thing I hear most people talk about. Mm. So. Yeah.
But he said that these younger students coming in and establishing their cliques not at the bars or the live music venues.
Right.
Instead, they're doing it at house parties, bush parties, and wherever else. All right. Well, moving on from that, I noticed you have incredible mic control.
Oh,
over years and years of watching you, like the spatial, the way that you use the space around the microphone, is incredible. Where did you learn that?
A lot of it trial and error, and some very, very good advice. One of the first times I recorded a bunch of demos was with a great guy in Waterloo named Eric Durstein. And Eric, when I went in to do my first session, was liking what I was doing and would give me pointers. And I found he did it really well. Instead of overloading me with too much advice, it'd be one thing each session, where it was, learning the simple things. And then it just gave me a little more confidence to use the mic. But the thing I from there, when I joined the Skydiggers, their front of house guy, Phil Presnell, road manager in front of house, is just he's a all around guru for live and recorded music. He's just an incredibly intelligent guy and a patient guy. And so he was one of the first guys to explain to me, here's what you sound like singing off axis. So don't sing directly into the mic, maybe sing over the mic a little bit. And then if you want a little more low end, maybe move in and get a little more of this. And it was just all of that kind of, just a bit of advice here and there. But I'd have to say, probably like most people, trial and error. When I got my first solo shows and I had to go rent a PA, I took it home and set it up and put the speakers at a volume where I could face the speaker with a microphone without it feeding back, and just figure it out. And I had the typical things everyone has, which is popping your P's, and I can be very sibilant, so I can put a lot of tin stuff into microphones live, and so that's where the singing off axis came in. And so just really, really good advice along the way. It's, one thing I recommend to anybody playing music is really listen to people when it comes to advice on that sort of thing. Not too many people like unsolicited advice, and they don't like being told what to do, and that can be common with the ego that goes along with doing something like this. But it's really good for you if somebody, and we've had this discussion long ago, sound techs in rooms who've been at it for years, whether they're doing the monitor mix for you or they're mixing the front of house for the entire audience. Listen to those people. They will really always point you in the right direction. And you just do what they say, and any bit of advice they have for you with sound, even with your amplifiers or your guitar tone or, your drums, your setup, whatever it is. Often those people, their ears are, they've spent more time training their ears than you have. And so you can find there's a lot of great advice.
Awesome, and that's not vocal training.
No, it's mic technique. Nothing really, not formal vocal training. No. Again, just a lot of singing and figuring out for me that was, one of the simplest things I learned early on was certain things I would try to do hurt. And I realized, well, I have to be doing something wrong because when I watch a singer, whether it's Judy Garland or whether it's, anyone with a notorious voice, I don't see them I don't see them grimacing in pain to produce this note. And then it's, okay, I'd learn that. And then I'd go, well, now what if I do want that rough, tough sounding voice going on? Every time I look at those guys, they've got their faces all scrunched up and that. So there's got to be a middle ground in there somewhere. And so for me, it was just a matter of comfort and breathing. And again, just advice from better singers and people with more experience than me along the way.
And over the years, you've actually expanded your vocal range?
Oh, definitely. Well, that's Derek Hines' running joke, is that he just expected me to, my voice to, he said, you're the only person I know who, as he gets older, his voice gets higher. So.
Shout out to Derek Hines and Lucas Begg and everybody else that we've been mentioning on the program. PaulMacLeodmusic.com, again, if you want to check that out. And while you're on the internet, go to musicliz.ca, because I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Would you like to play another song?
Yeah. Let me think of, here, I've got this in front of me, so what should I do off of here?
It's all up to you, sir. Jeez, I usually end the show with Be My Girl.
Okay.
But I'm going to end today's show with PSAs, so you can play it live if you
I
want.
want to do this, actually, because I got a little story for you. So,
all right.
One of my favorite records of all time is Teenage Fan Club's Bandwagon-esque. And so I was a huge fan of these guys, and I remember a couple of good friends of mine, kind of laying this stuff on me whenever it came out, and I just was hooked on it right away. And so, fast forward several years, and I find out that Norman Blake, one of the chief writers and singers and guitar players for Teenage Fan Club, is now living in my neighborhood because his wife is from the area. So he kept his place in Glasgow, Scotland, and then he winds up living, got to be 400 yards from my front door. And so I met him through Mark Logan and Lynn Jackson at Busted Flat Records. They took me over for barbecue and some drinks one night, and had mentioned to him I'd made an arrangement of a song on the record. And he then came out to a show and wanted to hear it. And so we went ahead and said, would it be okay to record this song? So we got direct. So it was the first time in my life. I'd only recorded a couple covers in my life, but to have the direct permission instead of just filling out the paperwork and crossing your fingers you don't get rejected, this was nice. So kind of coming directly from the band was a pretty big deal for me. And so here's my arrangement of a song of theirs called December.
I'll take this chance to tell my friends what I'm thinking of. On second thought, I'll drink some more and tell you later on. She don't even care that I would die for her love. My mind is full of several things resembling a thought. I'll take this chance to tell my friends what I'm thinking of. She don't even care that I would die for her love. for many years, but now I can't remember why I wanted to assassinate December. Why I wanted to assassinate December. She don't even care that I would die for her love.
Another wonderful song. Thank you very much, Paul MacLeod, who I have live here in the station today. The show is Underplayed and Underpaid, and local music is what we pretty much stick to. So again, if you want to get a hold of me, it's bryancfru@gmail.com. You can find the Underplayed & Underpaid Facebook page and click a like on there. All kinds of fun, good stuff and goodies and whatnot. Tickle your fancy with some fancy tickles, as I like to say. So yeah, that was the song December, which was a cover from a Teenage Fan Club.
Yes, yeah.
What was the name of the album? Do you remember?
The album is called Bandwagon-esque.
Bandwagon-esque. Okay, I'm just writing that down. We've been talking about music and through your ages.
Yes,
from your college days, university.
Yeah.
University. What did you study?
I started off at Laurier. I was one of those guys with a general knack for math, so I went into the business and economics program, thinking I should translate these marks into something, and it just wasn't for me. So I moved myself into general arts and just started checking out some courses, and found I honestly gravitated more towards the philosophy and theology courses, and then started taking some courses at the University of Waterloo, and then the opportunity to tour came along, so I basically just put everything on hold and haven't looked back since.
And when it comes to those types of studies, do you still enjoy researching, on your own time, stuff like that?
Oh, very much so, actually. Yeah. Well, it's one of my loves about the internet is information, whether it's fanciful, accurate, or hopeful, or inaccurate. I mean, I'm constantly, you and I have these conversations at Jimmy Jazz all the time when it just about, finding pyramids under the Bermuda Triangle, what are the pyramids to what, but theology definitely still sticks with me. And, I would say now I've become more of more in history and, where we're headed. So I guess more humanitarian studies, but basically on my own time, and certainly don't consider myself an expert in any category. I'm just absolutely fascinated by it.
Right on. Well, we like to chat on the patio, and
yes.
The chats on the patio are completely different from the interviews on air.
Oh yeah, definitely. Not that we go, not that we're out of control on the patio. We're just
exactly, yeah. It's just that's what a friend of mine actually told me was, if you want to have a debate with somebody who's an academic, you need to have both sides of the argument, research to both extremes end of the scale.
Oh, definitely,
and never have an opinion. You just present all the facts. Versus the patio, you can just talk.
Go with it and explore ideas, the what ifs, or if you've got a theory, it's just a theory, so throw it out there and see if anything sticks, or see if people shoot it down like a hot air balloon or something. It's like you might as well throw it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, Jimmy Jazz Patio is where Paul MacLeod is every Monday night.
Monday night, yeah.
So if you want to come out and enjoy a fun conversation and take part, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, please join us.
Yeah, and there's always a good handful of fun artistically minded people.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's always a fun time at the Jimmy Jazz on Monday nights. What else have you been up to? I hear that you're pretty good at darts.
Oh yeah, well that's become a hobby I got back into. So the last couple of years, I definitely got back into that and was able to represent the county at some of the team shoots for the province. And so my goal this year, what am I, in Elite or Premier League this year? I can't remember. My goal this year is to make my way to the provincials. And so last year I came short of qualifying for singles, and that's the work for me this year, is to get in there. But I just had a big tournament at the Holiday Inn in Kitchener. You know, loads and loads of people from all over North America come to it. There's a massive prize pool, and I had a very bad day. So I certainly was nowhere near my best until about the last 3 or 4 games, and it was just mathematically I'd already been eliminated, but I finally settled down and had some fun, and so that gets back into swing for me in a few weeks.
That's great.
Yeah, well, I love it. I find it's good for me. It's almost a forced meditation. I'm not great at sitting still and spending time in my own head. So I find that was a good hobby for me to pick up, to just stand there and do this repetitive motion over and over again, and just everything goes away, and suddenly I'd find what some people might look for in meditation, or they might get it from running or exercise, whatever it is. That definitely does it for me.
And are you cycling again? I know you had a foot injury.
I had a strained tendon in my foot, so no, it was really hard. Any I shouldn't call them hill, any raised incline was hurting my right foot. And it's honestly music related. It's just a repetitive stress injury from the way I stood on stage, so I've actually had to change that around. But I think I found the way I stood, I probably at one point thought I looked pretty cool, and so I just kept standing that way, and then it turns out I was putting 80% of my weight on one side of my body.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Well, at least you figured it out. And,
well, a little too late by the looks of things, but it's figured out nonetheless.
Right on. Well, I'm going to take a moment here, if you don't mind. If you wanted to go grab yourself some water, I'm going to talk about what's going on musiclives.ca. Music dead? Definitely not. You got to go to this website and check it out. Last week, I did an expose on, well, not an expose, but I just talked about what was going on over the entire week, because, there's just so many listings. It's wonderful what's going on in Guelph. So if you go to musiclives.ca, click on events at the top of the page, everything comes up. You scroll down to today's date, the 30th of September, and here's what's going on. Harry and Kent Sidewalk Revival, Mondays at the Red Papaya. And they also do, I believe, Kent does trivia at Red Papaya on Wednesdays. Also, there's Paul MacLeod at Jimmy Jazz, and all these things you can click on, and the start times and cover charge and all these things all come up. So, and then also Monday the 30th, there's my show. Thank you very much to Aaron Dale, Kaylee Baker, Chuck, and everybody else that's involved. Teresa, I believe, is one of the names. So we got to click to the next month, and here's what's going on. Well, there's nothing listed on the 1st, but there's, again, like we mentioned, there's all kinds of trivia downtown. Wednesday the 2nd is Gain Music hosts C.R. Avery Words and Music at Van Gogh's Ear. Words and Music, I guess, nice. At Van Gogh's Ear. Are you familiar with C.R. Avery?
Oh, yeah. I've only, he's great, and I've only heard nothing but great reviews about the shows.
There you go. Also, on Wednesday the 2nd, Music Lives hosts Name That Tune at the Jimmy Jazz. So if you like music trivia and you like potent potables, that's the place to be. Thursday, there's nothing listed, but there's always live music going downtown on Thursdays. Friday the 4th is the first Friday of the month, which means, of course, Run with the Kittens or at the Jimmy Jazz, which is not listed there, but I'm sure they'll get on it. So listed on the 4th is Nick Zubak, Blind and Radia at Silence. And again, you can click on the links, and all the information will come up. Gain Music also hosts the Archives, Beverly, and Death Party Playground at Van Gogh's Ear. And Saturday the 5th, Cantina Productions hosts Bass and Burlesque at Van Gogh's Ear. I hear that's always a great time. And also Braun Halpin and Tyson's Casio Fiasco at Silence. I wonder if Tyson and his Game Boy is part of that. Steve Leduc would happen to know, I'm sure. An acoustic tribute to the 70s, Part 2 at Regal Road Studios. I bet you that would be a fun time. And Saturday the 6th, Gain Music hosts Sunday Fun Day with Mark and Nick at Van Gogh's Ear. I was hoping to get Mark and Nick into the station today, but I lucked out and I got Paul MacLeod. Poker, which, we'll get to that in a second. And also listed on the 6th, as I call it, the official Guelph open stage. Nathan Coles hosts open stage at the Jimmy Jazz, so they signed the list, and the stage is yours. Braden Phelan came out last night. That was a nice surprise, and that's always a fun time. So that's what's going on over the next week at musiclives.ca. And I mentioned you did an interview with Pioneer Radio's Kelly Jones.
That's right.
Who has the show right before mine.
Yeah.
And you guys talked about poker. What was that experience like?
Oh, well, it was good. It was a while ago, so I don't remember off the top of my head, but we had a great conversation. And certainly at the time, I was playing a lot more and making a lot more casino visits, especially while I was out on the road. I always like to pop in and check it out in different places, but it's something I haven't done too much of in the last year or so, but I still really enjoy it when I get a chance. As long as it's, as long as it's for low stakes when you're playing with friends, I find it's a good time. And and my advice, and I'm certainly, again, I'm not a professional by any means, but if you want to play that game for money, go play strangers at a casino and keep your friends.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to partake twice, I think.
Yes, that's right.
In some of that poker playing experience. Not for me, but I admire everybody and anyone who can. On the drive here, we got to listen to an album that was handed to me by Rolly Greenway of the band Crowbar. Lots of history there, but the band, I think the band or the album's called Biscuit Puppy, and I like it. I have fun listening to it.
Oh, yeah, that sounded great.
And while we were listening to it, I mentioned that, wow, this guy can still rock, and he's got a very young girlfriend. And your statement was, rock and roll keeps you going, keeps you young. Rock and roll keeps you young. Extrapolate.
Oh, I think there's something to be said for the fact that you are plugged in when you're involved in playing music. You're plugged into things around you, especially as a writer, and clearly he's a writer by looking at the titles on the record. And so that can keep you plugged into the times around you and what's going on. And it can be anything from just the fact that you're a band who's got to go on stage every week. So it might just be the fact that from anything from just that you're not dressed like your typical 17-year-old, right down to the fact that you're out there grooving to music like you did when you were a teenager, whether you're playing it or listening to it, and little things like that. I think keep people as young as a sense of humor or having a good time, but. It's I've noticed that about a lot of the bands that I played with when I was out on tour with the Skydiggers. I was one of the youngest people around on those tours, and noticed something about the way those people looked versus what their peers looked like. And it could be anything from just a sense of fashion for going on stage, but I think it's the fact that for the most part, music is fun and should be fun, because if you're not having fun at it, it's certainly about the easiest job in the world to quit. You usually don't have to give a whole lot of notice, and there will always be music. So it's not like you're going to leave some very few people when they stop playing music because they don't enjoy it, leave some gaping hole in the universe that can't be filled. It's not like we've lost a legend every time somebody stops playing. That's very, very rare. You can probably think of a few names that come up throughout your lifetime, whether it's Elvis or John Lennon. There just aren't many names that get mentioned like that. So I think most of it has to do with the fun, and then there's still that rebellious recklessness to it when people pick up their instruments and sit down and play. And as long as you never lose touch with the first time you got a chord right, or you got through a song, or the first feeling you got when you got your drum pattern right, and just that joy that it gave you, if that stays there, I think that alone keeps you young, even if you're just playing in your basement and no one ever hears you.
Based on that statement, I'm gonna play a little something off the internets by a gentleman named John Gomm. Just gonna play a few seconds of it, and we're gonna just talk about
Wildflower.
Yeah. All right. So here's some just a sample of John Gomm, Passion Flower, actually.
Passion Flower. Thank you.
Yeah, check this out, and we'll be back in a couple seconds. Just enjoy. So that was just the intro to a song called Passion Flower by John Gomm. Jon-Gomm. Passion Flower. Check it out. His guitar is just tarnished because how he plays it and all the different...
He's unbelievable.
How did you come across this gentleman?
It was Jay Leonard, the drummer in Romeo Sex Fighter, who Jay's really good. He's got one of the more eclectic menus for listening out of any of the musicians that I work with, and he's always coming up with something for me I've never heard of, and it usually is quite good. This in particular blew my mind because not only does this guy play incredible instrumental guitar, I haven't heard anybody play the way this guy plays. He sings as well, and he's a good singer. And often you get one or the other. You don't get the mix of both. But this is I find this to be one of the more inspiring things I've heard in the last year. And I find I'm one of those people who which I think I'm pretty average in sensibilities, and so it's usually something like that sends me, right back home after hearing it to pick up the guitar and sit down and practice and work on something new and try to capture whatever that feeling I just got from listening to that guy is, to try to give that off myself. Not so much musically do what he's doing, but just that, edge of your seat, spine tingling, or hair standing up on the back of your neck, however you want to describe it for yourself. I find that is the search, really, for me, is it like there's that connection that just gets you, and this guy did it for me, and it's things like that. I always feel very lucky to be inspired all the time, because I've certainly hit spots where I'm feeling, I'm feeling pretty blasé about myself, and it's like I wonder, geez, I can't go out and what if I'm making the audience feel that way, or if my songs are doing that, they're not, so. They're not connecting, they're not communicating on some level. So what is that? And I find it's really hard to find, and you're lucky when you do. And this guy just did it for me, and that's what I love about going out and finding anything new of any style is, if it gets you off, it lifts you up, whatever it is, that's something you're going to carry around with you. And I would recommend that anybody of any kind of music you like, I would definitely go on YouTube and check out this clip, just because it's netherworldly. It really is.
Yeah, it actually scared me.
I
wanted to pick up the guitar and play.
Yes.
But now, do I have to be that good?
Right, exactly. Well, unfortunately for the rest of us on this planet, we don't have to be John Gomm. So, yeah. But it's certainly something to aspire to.
Right on. Well, I want to thank you very much, Paul MacLeod, for coming to the
Brian.
station.
Thank you so much.
I got to play a couple PSAs, and Blues Around the Block is coming up next with the Mo Coffee, which is always a fun time. So, again, thank you very much for tuning in to this installment of Underplayed and Underpaid, University of Guelph Community Campus Radio, CFRU 93.3, and we'll be back next week. So we'll see you at the Jimmy Jazz later on tonight to see Paul MacLeod play live. And, have a good week, and ciao for now.